guys, I'm back. Second video, so we're going to add number 8 on here, okay? So I forgot that I said I was going to do one of these on the previous video, but so we're going to do it here. So if I had 2 over 9 to the negative second power, okay? So add that for me. Alright, so remember the rules we said. Anything to the zero power answer is 1. Anything to the negative exponent, you flip your fraction, your exponent becomes positive. Okay? So on number 1, 9 to the negative second power is going to become 1 over 9. And then that's going to become 1, I'm running out of space, 1 over, I don't like putting equal signs on the same line, but I'm running out of space. So 1 over 81. Okay? Number 2, short, sweet, simple. 3.6 to the 0 power. Well, remember we said anything to the 0 power is 1. Number 4, 4 to the negative third power. It's a negative exponent. Remember you flip your fraction. So it becomes 1 over 4 to the third power. And then we're going to do 4 to the third power. 4 times 4 times 4, which is to the 64. So it'd be 1 over 64. Okay? And then number 4, 3 to the negative second powers. Remember, it's a negative exponent. We flip our fraction. So that would be 1 over 3 to the second power, and then 1 over 9. So you see how I'm showing my work on this? It's not really a lot of work, is it? Nope. But I want to see it because I want to make sure you understand what you have to do with that fraction, with that number. You have to flip it. Okay? Number 5, no work to show. Anything to the 0 power we know is 1. So it's nothing to show there but put 1. Number 6, negative 4 to the negative second power. So notice your negative 4 is in parentheses. Okay, so I'm taking negative 4 to the negative second power. So it's a negative exponent. I have to flip it. So it's going to be 1 over negative 4. Put your parentheses. And then that becomes a positive exponent. Well, because my parentheses are there, that's going to be a negative 4 times a negative 4, which is a positive 16. Okay, number 7, 6 to the negative first. Well, flip it because it's a negative exponent. So that'd be 1 over 6. Now question, it's 6 to the first power. But do I have to put to the first power? Any number or variable has an understood exponent of 1. Just like if I had 6, I could write it as a fraction by putting it over 1. Just like if I had a variable, it has a coefficient of 1. So the exponent, if there's not an exponent above the number, it's an understood 1 to be there. So I could just say 1 over 6 and be done. All right. And the last one here. All right, so I want to put this one here because remember, when you have a negative fraction, you move your negative number, you flip it, okay? Now, the difference with this is just the 9 is negative, not the 2 over 9, okay? So what's going to happen with the 9 is the 9 is going to move to the top, but the 2 is not going to change. So this is going to stay, the 2 is going to stay on top because the 2 doesn't have an exponent that's negative. The 9 is going to come from the bottom to the top. Okay, so remember in the little thing it said in the notes that I gave you in the first video, it said you switch, or you flip it in the opposite place. So I'm taking that negative 9 from the denominator and I'm bringing it up to the numerator. So that becomes 2 times negative 9 to the positive second power. So now I have nothing in my denominator. The 2 stays in the numerator once again because the 2 does not have a negative exponent. Now, if I had this right here, then the whole thing would flip because it's in parentheses. But because just the negative 9 has a negative exponent, then only the 9 moves. The 2 does not move. So 9 times 9 to the second power is 81, and 81 times 2 is 162. So my answer would be 162. Okay? All right, next page. All right, here it says to simplify algebraic expressions with exponents. Two things. You cannot have zero exponents, and you cannot have negative exponents. So no zero exponents, no negative exponents. Pause the video, write that down. To simplify algebraic expressions with exponents. No zero, no negative exponents. All right? All right, so you should finish writing that down. If not, rewind, write it down, pause. All right, so simplifying this, notice how I have variables. So I can't truly simplify because I don't know what the variables are equal to, right? So I'm just simplifying it as best as I can with what I know. So 0 exponents equal 1, negative exponents flip, okay? So number 1, 5a to the third, b to the negative second. Well, I don't know what a is and I don't know what b is, but I do notice that b has a negative exponent. So b is going to have something done to it. B is going to flip to the denominator. So right now, everything's in the numerator because I can write all of this as being over 1, right? So right now, 5a to the third, nothing's going to happen to that. It's going to stay 5a to the third. Your b to the negative second is going to flip to the opposite place. So it's in the numerator, it's going to flip to the denominator, and so that's going to become b to the second. And because I don't know what b is, I don't know what a is, this is my answer. I'm done. Okay, number 2. So think back what we just did on number 8's example on the previous slide. 1 over x to the negative 5th. Okay, so technically what happens here is my x, because it has a negative exponent, is going to flip to the opposite place. So if it's in the denominator, it's going to flip to the numerator. So I have 1 is in the numerator times x, and your exponent, negative exponent, becomes positive. So that just becomes basically x to the 5th. I don't have to put the 1 there if I don't want to, but it's okay if you do. 1 times x is the same as just x. All right, so x to the 5th. On number 3, x to the negative 9th. Negative exponent, you flip it, so it's going to become 1 over x, and you change that negative to a positive. All right? Number 4. So I've got 1 over n to the negative third. So this is going to be very similar to number 2. So that n has a negative exponent, so it's going to flip to the opposite. So it's going to come to the top. Nothing's on bottom now, so I can just write n to the third. Okay? Number 5. We have 4c to the negative third times b. Okay, so once again, I don't know what any of these variables mean or what they represent, so I'm just going to simplify as best as I can. So 4, can't do anything with that. All of this is in the numerator right now, remember that. So I know I'm going to have some numbers in the numerator and some in the denominator because I have a negative exponent. So 4 is going to stay on top. What else is going to stay on top? B is going to stay on top because it does not have a negative exponent. Notice that the c has a negative exponent, so it's going to flip to the bottom. So that becomes c to the third power. Okay. Number 6, I have 2 over a to the negative third. So notice 2 is in the numerator and a to the negative third is in the denominator, but the a has a negative exponent. The 2 is going to stay where it is. And the a is going to flip to the top because it's a negative exponent. So it'll be 2 times a to the positive third. So because they're both in the numerator, I can just say 2a to the third power. Okay? Number 7, notice that m in the denominator is positive. N in the numerator, the exponent's negative. Okay? So I've got a fraction. I'm going to draw my fraction bar. This n over negative 5 is actually going to flip to the bottom. So I'm going to go m squared, it's going to stay there, that's not moving. And then I'm going to bring my n to the positive fifth down. And I can't have an answer like this with nothing on top, so I've got to put a 1 on top of that. Okay, so my answer on this one would be 1 over m squared n to the fifth. Okay, remember I brought that n to the negative fifth down. It was a negative exponent, so I flipped it down. The m stayed because the exponent's positive. I don't know what m is, so I can't do anything with it. So you just flip that negative exponent down and make it go positive. Okay? All right, last page, we are evaluating. So remember, evaluate means to solve in math, to solve. So you're evaluating, okay? So it does not matter if you simplify it first or if you want to substitute first. I'm going to show you both ways on number 1, okay? So number 1, we have 3s to the third power, t to the negative second power. So I don't even care about this right now. Okay, so I'm just going to simplify this. Well, I know 3s to the third is going to stay 3s to the third. That's not going to change. But because this t to the negative second power is a negative exponent, I'm going to flip that and it's going to become t to the second. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to see what I'm going to substitute in. So I've got 3 times 2 squared over my t is negative, so I'm going to put parentheses around it, negative 3 squared. Don't forget your parentheses, okay? So now, order of operations, I have to do 2 squared, so I have 3 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So then my answer is 12 over 9. But I can reduce this. So I'm going to divide both by 3. So that'd be 4 over 3. Okay? If you want to substitute first, you can. So I could have gone 3 times 2 to the third power times negative 3 to the negative second power. So I would have done 3 times. Oh, hold up. I wrote a 2 here. Nobody stopped me. Y'all say Miss Schumbert. Probably because I'm making a video and I can't hear you. This is a 3, not a 2. My bad. My bad, people. My bad. So 2 to the third power. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, so then it's 24 over 9. I know I can divide by 3 still. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. So that'll be 8. 8 over 3. Okay? And then, so over here I have 2 to the third, which we just said is 8. And then times, I have negative 3 to the negative second, so I know that's going to flip. So that's going to be negative 3 to the negative second, so that'll become negative 3 to the positive second. And so that becomes 24 over 9, which is 8 over 3. Okay? All right, on this next one, you are going to use the same value of N and the same value of W for all three of these, okay? So I'm actually going to simplify before I substitute because I like to do that better, okay? Number 2, I have N to the negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a fraction mark because I have a negative exponent. We'll bring that negative to the bottom. So N to the positive 4 now. Now, W to the 0 is 1. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. I don't care if W is negative 5. Negative 5 to the 0 power, guess what, is 1. So the W basically just goes away because anything times 1 is the same thing. So I'm going to bring my 1 on top. So I have 1 over N to the 4th. Well, N is negative 2. So I have 1 over negative 2 to the 4th. Well, negative 2 to the 4th is negative times, it's an even exponent. So I have a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative. So I know I'm going to have a positive answer. Okay? So remember, even exponents, you have a positive answer. Odd exponents, when it's negative, you are going to have a negative answer. Okay? So 2 times 2 is 4. So another 2 times 2 is 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. So this would be 1 over 16 would be my answer. All right. And then number 3, we have N to the negative 1st over W squared. Well, I know that the N is going to flip because the exponent is negative. And the W is going to stay where it is, right? So now I'm going to go 1 over, N is a negative 2, and W is a negative 5. This is supposed to be a negative 5, isn't it? Nope, it's just 5. Oops, my bad. W is just a 5, not a negative 5. That should be an equal sign, not a negative sign. So times 5 to the 2nd power. And so negative 2 to the 1st is still just negative 2. 5 squared is 25. So then negative 2 times 25 would be 1 over 50. What kind of 50 will it be though? Negative. So it would be 1 over negative 50. All right. Number 4. Notice I have a negative exponent, but my negative exponent is only to the W. Okay. So everything stays the same except for the W. The W is the only one with the negative exponent, so it's going to go to the top. And my exponent becomes a positive when I flip it. Okay? So now, do I really need that 1 anymore? Not really, so I'm not going to write it. So I have 5. W is 5. W to the 1st power. 5 to the 1st power is still 5, so I'm not going to put the 1. Over N, and N is negative 2. So negative 2 does not go into 5 evenly, so my answer is just 5 over negative 2. Okay? All right, so hopefully that was, today's lesson wasn't too complicated. 2 main things that you have to remember. 0 exponents, your answer is 1 every time. If it's a 0 exponent, and a negative exponent means you have to flip places with your number. Okay, so it just flips to the opposite place. So if it was in the numerator, it goes to the denominator. If it was in the denominator, it goes to the numerator. Okay, so here's your homework assignment. Let me know if you have any questions, and Tuesday I'll go over anything before we move on to lesson 2. Okay, all right, bye.